When you are running a business, when you are leading a team, when you are in relationship, when you just have all of these different responsibilities in your life, you are going to constantly be met with high stakes decisions, important decisions that need to be made on a consistent basis. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make in those scenarios is they make those decisions from the wrong energy, from the wrong headspace. For example, let's say there's a business owner and they sit down with their accountant and they look at their numbers and they realize that not only are they not profitable to the degree that they thought they were, they're actually in the red. And now this panic just fills their body. They default into this scarcity mode. They feel like they're going to run out of money. They feel like their whole business is going to fall apart. They feel like they're failing. And all this intense emotion starts to fill their body. And now this urgency kicks in and they think, okay, we got to make some immediate changes. We got to cut this expense. We got to raise the prices over here. We got to do all these things to fix this money problem. And what's happening is they're in this heightened state of reactivity and they're making these decisions from a fear based place. And what we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're able to assess if we're in that kind of energy and get ourselves back to a place where we feel grounded, where we can actually access the clarity to ask the correct questions so that we can take the correct actions to remedy whatever challenge is happening here. In a scenario like this shows up when an entrepreneur is incredibly overwhelmed and they're looking at their calendar and they see all the responsibilities that they have to take on that week and they're just like, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need help. And so now they're in this intense state of overwhelm, of stress, of pressure, and they go out and they make an immediate hire on somebody and it turns out to be the wrong person. And now not only did it cost them time and money by having the wrong person in the wrong seat, now they're even more hesitant to make that decision again. And the reason is because they made that decision from a place of urgency. They were in that state of overwhelm and they made a decision to go hire somebody and they hired the wrong person because of it. Because they didn't take the time and the intention to get themselves back to that grounded state so they could get clear on specifically what problems that they needed solved, what responsibilities they needed to hand off, and who that ideal fit would be, and go through the proper steps and channels to make sure they execute that decision and those actions correctly. Well, let's take this into an example inside of your intimate relationship. You got a husband and wife that are in relationship, and there's conflict. Let's say you have this wife who's feels like she's taking on all the responsibility and doesn't feel like her husband is supporting her to the degree that she needs. And really, in reality, what's happening is needs aren't being communicated correctly, and so both people are feeling a little resentful, right? The husband feels like no matter what he does, it's never enough, and the wife is feeling like her needs are just not being met, and she feels very unseen and unsupported. And because of that, there's all this heightened emotion. And now a conversation happens, it turns into an argument. And in that moment, somebody might make the decision of, you know what, I'm just going to leave this relationship. That's it. Maybe we should just get a divorce. But they're making that decision from an incredibly heightened sense of reactivity. Now, when all that calms down, that's most likely not going to be the decision that they would actually want to move forward with. But because they're in that state of reactivity, that decision, that choice gets thrown out into the conversation, and now it creates this big problem, this big ouch. Now there's a fear that somebody might actually walk out of this relationship because they chose that response from a heightened state of reactivity. Now, in that example, it's very unlikely that they're actually going to just leave the relationship and follow through on that decision. But what I'm highlighting is that a potential decision was being made from the wrong state, the wrong energy, the wrong headspace. And so when we are in these positions of leadership, whether it's our business, our team, our partnership, or ourselves, we have to make sure that we are in the right energy to make those decisions. And in order to do that, we need to be able to assess what energy am I in? And is the energy that I'm in conducive to the result that I'm trying to create? And this is where we can kind of start with being able to manage ourselves internally because most of us have a lot of reactivity that's happening in our life. And we've never really been in enough scenarios to develop our ability to be with all of these intense situations and relationships and decisions and keep ourselves grounded. And so we're just in this constant state of reactivity. And one of the first places we have to start is we have to be able to tune in and assess, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling? I'm feeling, we use that example of the entrepreneur that looked at their financials and saw that they were in the red. They're feeling afraid. They're feeling afraid that they're going to lose their business, that all their money is going to just be gone. They're going to be broke. And there's a fear, there's a terror that comes in that to some degree. And so when you can understand, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling afraid. Okay, now that I can highlight the emotion I'm in, I can immediately assess, okay, if I'm in a state of fear, do I want to be making decisions about my business from this place? And almost universally, the answer is going to be no. So now we have to find a way to get ourselves into a better feeling state so that we can revisit the situation that we're trying to solve. Now, when we are trying to solve a problem in a situation that already has a high degree of reactivity, it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to change our state when our focus is on that thing. And so as long as that person's focus is on the money, as long as that person's focus is on the the overwhelm of all the responsibilities, as long as that couple's focus is on the fact that somebody feels like no matter what they do, it's not enough, and the other person is feeling unseen and unsupported, it's very unlikely they're ever going to be able to get themselves into a better feeling place or find a better feeling thought when that's where their focus is. And so we have to be able to have the ability to shift our focus onto something that can create a better feeling experience for us, something entirely different. And oftentimes, a very neutral experience can do that because there's all kinds of things that are happening in our lives on a consistent basis that, if we were to put our attention onto it, would help us to feel good or feel better. And it can be as simple as looking out a window and noticing the weather and think, wow, it's really a beautiful day out here. Or going for a walk and just not putting on a podcast, not listening to music, and just allowing yourself to notice the scenery as you're walking around, to put your attention on the clean, crisp air as you breathe it in and out of your body. And all we're trying to do is get ourselves back to a place that feels calm and get ourselves back to a place that feels regulated. And one of the ways that we do this again is, can we find things that we can put our attention on that feels good when we put our attention on it? Maybe that's going out and spending some time with one of your kids if you have them, or taking a couple hours and going to visit a friend, or hopping on a phone with somebody that you always have good conversations with. Maybe that's going and loving on your partner for a little while and just immersing in some affection and some connection. Maybe that is going to the gym and just working some of it out. Maybe it is going up into a practice room and doing an emotional release ritual. Maybe it is just screaming into a pillow and just letting yourself take a deep breath and relax and reminding yourself that everything is okay and you have everything that you need within you, and that every single problem that's ever showed up in your life, you have always found a way to get through it and get to the other side. And just a quick reminder of who you are. But there's all of these different ways that we can shift our attention onto something different. And as long as there's an awareness there, now you have the power of choice. And so what happens is, we'll take this money situation again because it's a really intense scenario for all of us, right? Whenever you're looking at your money situation and all of a sudden there's not as much money there as you were expecting, we're all going to have a little bit of a panic, right? Because there's just a universal fear that we all have that at some point in our life we're just going to run out of money. And so it's a legitimate fear that we all have. And so when that is happening and there's that intensity, that fear is really intense in the body, it creates this urgency to solve this problem immediately because I need to get out of this energy. And even though you may be able to come online and assess, okay, I'm in a fearful place, this isn't the energy I need to be in, there's going to be a very strong pull internally to keep your focus on the thing that is causing the dysregulation. And so even though you can say, all right, well, let me find a better feeling thought. Let me shift my attention to something else. Let me leave the room and go engage with somebody. Let me get on the phone and call somebody. Let me go do this practice. You may be able to even think that thought, but you're going to experience so much resistance to actually doing it. So much resistance. every step of the way. Even if you can say, okay, I'm going to leave the room, you're going to leave the room, and your mind's going to be like, this isn't working. Let's just go back and focus on the thing and solve this problem. And then here you are in this fearful place, or this hurt place, or this overwhelmed place, trying to solve a problem from the energy that's creating it. And we have to get ourselves into a better feeling place, finding a better feeling thought in order to access a different frequency of clarity that will allow us to solve the problem that we're trying to create, right? It's that mentality. It's like you can't solve the problem from the energy that created it. And that's what so many of us are trying to do. And we're trying to solve the problem so we can feel better. And we have that backwards. It's how can we get ourselves into a better feeling place so we can actually access the solution that we're trying to find. And so I want that to be your practice here for this week as you take this into your world. As these different moments show up that are going to have different degrees of reactivity in your life, whether it's in your business, your relationship, or just what you're experiencing personally, first thing we want to do is as soon as we can catch that dysregulation, that reactivity, which is almost always a tightness in the chest, it's a shortness of breath, it's an increased heart rate, and there's this heightened sense of urgency around something to do something or say something. That's when you know you're in a place where we need to find some calmness, right? You're in reactivity. And so as soon as you recognize those physical sensations, you can ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling? And name the specific emotion. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling misunderstood. Okay. Now that I can understand that, now we're in a position where we can redirect thought. Now this is one angle, and I don't ever want my messaging to be confusing for you because there's multiple ways to approach most situations. And so I don't want you to think like this is the only way to approach that. Because another approach there is when you identify what you feel, if you're feeling afraid and we're trying to find some solution there, the next question is, what do I need? And once I can assess what that need is, then I can ask the question, all right, what's the vehicle to get that need met? And so if somebody's in this financial challenge where they're feeling the intensity of their money run out, and it's like, what do I need? I need safety and security and clarity. Okay, how do I get that need met? And maybe that's okay, we need to lay out a 90-day, marketing strategy on how we're going to bring more money into the business. Or I need to set an appointment with my accountant and take a look at all of my expenses and see where I'm bleeding money so that I can course correct what's happening with my business here. And then doing though, that will get the need met for safety and security and clarity. And so that is one thing that's one way we can look at it. So you got two approaches here. One, it's everything's feeling very intense and I just can't really access anything that's going to serve the moment. So it's how can I redirect for a little while, calm myself down, and then revisit what's happening. And then when we're in that place, it's taking a look at, okay, what am I feeling? What do I need? And what ways can I get that need met? And we can access the clarity around those things because we've gotten ourselves into a better feeling place. And so practice this as you take this into the world this week and see what comes up for you. And if there's anything you want to share or if you have a question that you want to ask, you can always reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, hit me up with a DM at Arvin_Anderson. You can go to my website if you ever want to chat about something, arvinanderson.com. And I'm always available to help you through anything that you're moving through because we all need support along the way. And I'm happy to be a means of support for you as you continue to find your way with everything that you're doing. Thanks again for your time. I appreciate you tuning in each week to listen or to watch. And I really hope you're just finding value in the things that I'm sharing. I'll see you next week.